Run.
Well, hi everyone, and welcome to On the Run. And yes, the run has begun. I am coming at you from the IAG office in Hong Kong. So you may recognize the background from one or two videos that I did before from Hong Kong. So let's get straight into it because we've got a very, very busy On the Run. And this On the Run is coming to you on a Thursday morning rather than a Friday morning. Reason being, on Friday, we're all flying to London for ICE. So one day early. Let's start with Macau. So JP Morgan, we had a story coming out saying that they thought that Macau mass may be as much as 70% of pre-COVID mass. Of course, we all know that Macau has gone gangbusters. Is it revenge travel? Is it revenge gambling? Is it just a big lump of play going through the system? Or is this the new normal? As I've said before, wait until the second half of March and we'll know for sure, or we'll have a very good idea. Anyway, and yes, on Wednesday, the GGR for January number was announced by the DICJ. Wait for it, $11.6 billion, or Macau Patakas, I should say, $11.6 billion, the highest in 3 years, so near enough to 12, $1.5 billion US. Wow, wow, wow. Finally back to some kind of a decent number. And let's do a little bit of analysis on that. So the 2019 GGR, the first or the most recent full year prior to COVID, was 36.5 billion US dollars, and about 55% of that was mass, with the other 45% being VIP. So 55% of 36.5 is 20. So $20 billion in mass, 20 billion US in 2019. Now, 11.6 billion is the equivalent of 1.45 billion, or near enough to 1.5 billion US, which if you multiply that by 12, it's 17.4 billion, nearly 18 billion, which is 87% of 20 billion. So in January, and remember, we didn't open until January the 8th. So the first 7 days, call it the first quarter of January, was basically wiped out. So if you were to add another third, if you were to say there was no revenue there, of course there was some, but you were to add another third on top of that 87. Well, a third of 87 is, what's that, 29? So that's 116. So mass is running at 116%, arguably, maybe a little less because there was some revenue in the first 7 days, but over 100% of 2019 mass. Now, of course, that doesn't replace VIP, but remember, VIP was lower margin. So you know what? We're nearly back. Now, the question is this sustainable? Is this just a big lump of revenge travel, revenge gambling, or is this the new normal? Only time will tell, but it's exciting stuff. So I'm really, really glad to hear it. And as I said in last week's On the Run, those three factors that made me very bearish about Macau: COVID zero, capital controls, and government attitude. Well, COVID zero is gone. Capital controls, who knows? There seems to be a lot of money in town, and government attitude seems to have changed as well. So if all three of them turn around, I'll be back to being very bullish about Macau. Let's see. I'm quietly optimistic. Let's see how that plays out over the next few weeks. Okay, what's next on the rundown here? We're sticking with Macau. Sands, so Rob Goldstein, the chairman and CEO of Sands, came out and said he believes Sands can make money on the non-gaming spend. As you all know, all 6 Macau concessionaires, as part of their concession renewals, made huge commitments of non-gaming spend. It worked out to be US $4.4 million per concessionaire per week. What a huge number, ranging from a much larger number for the two big ones, Sands and Galaxy, down to the smallest one, which was Melco. And that works out to be, for Sands, 3.8 billion commitment over the next 10 years, possibly going up as high as 4.5 billion. That commitment goes up if certain GGR figures are met, and IAG's reported about that before. We did some very good and solid coverage over Christmas about that. And Rob Goldstein says he can make money on that. So let's see. Personally, I don't think he has to make money on that. If he breaks even, that's a wonderful achievement. If he gets 80% of it back, it's a wonderful achievement, to be frank. The number of Macau gaming workers is up. Yes, the first time in ages, up 1,200 people. Third quarter, it was 66,400 working in the industry. Fourth quarter, 67,600 working in the industry. So 67,000, what's that? Roughly about maybe 20% of the entire workforce of Macau works in the gaming industry. But of course, it's a lot more than that because there's a lot of indirect employment as well. Sticking with Macau, 451,000 arrivals during Macau Golden Week. That was the final number for the 7 days. I'm just tapping 451 divided by 7 down on my iPhone here. That comes out to be 64,000 per day. Not the 108,000 we averaged in 2019, but don't be fooled by that, because a lot of the 108,000 were tire kickers. They were tour group people who didn't gamble or gambled very small. The players who or the visitors who have come back are players with money, and the amount of gambling is more per person. They're staying for longer at the moment. They're not just staying for the average 1.5 days. It's always been 1.5 days. They're staying a bit longer. So this is all exciting stuff. And again, back to the question, is this just a revenge gambling thing, or is this long-term? Only time will tell. G2E Asia announced that they are returning this year with two, not one, but two live shows, one in Singapore, one in Macau. Been a little bit of consternation and confusion around this. The gaming shows in Singapore and the non-gaming shows in Macau, which seems a bit odd, but they're trying to keep in with the Macau government non-gaming thing. So the one in Singapore, I think, is May 30, 31 and 1st of June. The one in Macau, I'm sorry, the dates just slipped me. I think it's in July sometime. Let's see how that works out. I mean, it's quite an unusual thing. G2E have never done that before. Are they diluting their brand by doing two shows? Let's see. Let's move on to the Philippines, the number 2 market in Asia, now that Macau is back. The Philippines, well, the orchestrated attack on POGOs continues. It's clear as a media guy that this is an orchestrated attack. There was a story this week that 58% of Filipinos disapprove of the industry for a range of reasons, increase in vice, increase in crime, Chinese influence, that sort of thing. So let's see. Last week we reported 3 anti-POGO stories. This week's it's 1. Let's see how many we have next week. But there's definitely a political attack going on POGOs. The government seems to want POGOs. They seem to say they're here to stay. So let's see how that plays out. The Philippines police called for e-sabong, that's e-cockfighting, or gambling on e-cockfighting, to be listed under an anti-gambling law in Macau, beg your pardon, in the Philippines. There was a lot of controversy around this. So let's see what happens there. Okada Manila announced GGR in the fourth quarter of, wait for it, 193 million US dollars. So extrapolate that out, multiply that by 4. You got 800 minus 28. What's that? 772. All right. So over $750 million just for one property. Obviously, Okada Manila and Soler are sort of the big two in the Philippines. But if you were multiply that by that number by 4, even though the other two are probably not quite as big, you get to 3 billion. I'd say a little less than 3 billion. And I'm about to say that PAGCOR announced GGR of $1 billion. So they're up to 4. So that 5 billion number for GGR for the Philippines is kicking around. Remember, you've also got Clark, you've also got Cebu. So yeah, the Philippines is on fire and they are a market to be reckoned with. Next on the rundown, well, as I just mentioned, PAGCOR GGR up to $1 billion in 2022. So this is the GGR of the PAGCOR properties, not the Entertainment City properties. The Entertainment City, of course, being Okada Manila, Soler, Newport World Resorts, the old Resorts World Manila, and City of Dreams in Manila. So, and I'll be over to the Philippines later in actually it'll be in March, later in the trip on the run that I'm currently on. Now to some stories from elsewhere in the APAC region. IAG, of course, trying to cover all of APAC now these days. Australia, so the Clubs New South Wales chief was sacked for linking the Premier's comments and desire for cashless gaming. Josh Landis, I should say, was sacked by the board because he linked the New South Wales Premier's cashless gaming push to his Catholic faith, which was not seen to be a good thing to be doing. So Josh is no longer the head of Clubs New South Wales. Of course, for those that don't know, in Australia, New South Wales is the biggest state. It has the most clubs. The clubs industry is huge in New South Wales. Clubs and pubs, poker machines, or pokies as they're called in Australia, slots in the rest of the world. Many of them are in New South Wales. Over to Thailand now, and Maybank, the investment bank, said that Thai casinos could threaten as much as 25% of Singapore GGR. So you see that Sands would want to protect their investment in Marina Bay Sands and would love to be in Bangkok. So that's an interesting one. In Cambodia, Star Vegas is fully open now, and it drives Donaco, I never know whether to say Donaco or Donaco, to a US $1.3 million EBITDA in Q4. That's up from down, I should say, from a $1.5 million EBITDA in Q3, but up from a $1.2 million loss in Q4 last year. The revenue was 5.3 million, so 1.3 on 5.3. What's that, about nearly 25%? Star Vegas, of course, has Donaco has, of course, got Star Vegas and Poi Pet and Aristo in Lao Cai in Vietnam on the Chinese border. Finally, or nearly finally, ICE, the biggest ICE yet, 68 nations, 623 exhibitors, over 100 side events. It is going to be huge. So the whole IAG team, or 4 of the IAG team, will be at ICE next week. We're all flying to London on Friday, and we'll be up there for ICE, and we'll be reporting. Please follow our stuff in Breakfast Briefing. We're also doing the live TV reporting each morning from ICE as the Asian lead media partner for ICE. And speaking of ICE, it was announced that Paris, Madrid, and Barcelona were amongst the candidates to host ICE from 2025. ICE says Clarion has only committed to having ICE in London in 2023 and 2024, but from 2025 they're considering possibly moving and possibly to Paris, Madrid, Barcelona, or staying in London. So there's a competitive process going on now about that. So that will be super interesting too. So quite a long on the run today, a lot to talk about for this week. And I'm, as I say, now in Hong Kong. I'll be heading off on Friday to London. So next week will be from London. After London, I'll be going to Paris, then to Melbourne, Sydney, Melbourne, Hobart, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, Singapore, KL, Phnom Penh, Sihanoukville, Phnom Penh, Manila, Cebu, Clark, probably back down to Manila again, and then over to Hong Kong, and finally back to Macau. So that'll keep me going for many weeks. And if you would like to catch up with me at ICE, that would be great, or any of the IAG team, if you'd like to do some business with us, we'd love to meet you at ICE. Our booth, I should know this, it's ND7C, if I remember correctly. Please look it up if I've made a mistake, but I'm pretty sure it's ND7C is our booth at ICE. We'd love to see you there, or indeed anywhere else on that run over the upcoming weeks. If you want to catch up, I'd love to do so. So have a great weekend. Things are booming in Macau. Things are booming in the rest of the APAC region. I think we're going to have a very good 2023 and an even better 2024. Thanks, everyone. See you next week, and bye for now.
Run.